Are you ready to get started? Okay, perfect. All right, good evening. Let's come to order and go on the record, please. I'm Charlotte Mitchell, Chair of the North Carolina Utilities Commission. Joining me tonight is Commissioner Kimberly Duffley. I now call for hearing docket number E100 sub 190, which is the Biennial Consolidated Carbon Plan and Integrated Resource Plans of Duke Energy Carolinas, LLC, and Duke Energy Progress, LLC, held pursuant to North Carolina General Statutes, sections 62-110.9 and 62-110.1C. Pursuant to the State Ethics Act, I remind members of the Commission of our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and inquire if any commissioner has a known conflict of interest with regard to the matter coming before us this evening. The record will reflect that no conflict has been identified, so we will proceed. North Carolina General Statute Section 62-110.9, which I'll refer to as the Carbon Plan Statute, directs the Commission to take all reasonable steps to achieve a 70% reduction in carbon dioxide emitted by electric generating facilities in this state, owned or operated by Duke Energy Carolinas and Duke Energy Progress, from 2005 levels by the year 2030 and to carbon neutrality by the year 2050, subject to certain discretionary limitations. In accordance with the Carbon Plan Statute, the Commission issued an order adopting initial carbon plan and providing direction for future planning on December 30th, 2022, in docket number E100 sub 179. I'll refer to that order as the initial carbon plan. The Carbon Plan Statute directs the Commission to review the plan every 2 years after the adoption of the initial carbon plan. The initial carbon plan provided for the consolidation of the carbon plan and integrated resource plan processes, and required Duke to file its first proposed biennial CPIRP by no later than September 1st, 2023. On March 15th, 2023, the Commission opened this docket for the 2023 CPIRP proceeding. On August 17th, 2023, Duke filed a verified petition seeking the Commission's approval of its proposed 2023 CPIRP. On September 1st, 2023, Duke pre-filed direct testimony and exhibits of witnesses in support of its verified petition and proposed 2023 CPIRP. On September 21st, the Commission issued an order in this docket scheduling a technical conference to be held on October 12th for the purpose of receiving an oral presentation from Duke on its proposed 2023 IRP. That technical conference was held as scheduled on October 12th, 2023. On November 30th, 2023, Duke made a filing accompanied by supplemental expert witness testimony for the purpose of updating the Commission and all parties in this docket on substantial material changes in the company's load forecast since its initial preparation of the CPIRP. On December 18th, 2023, by filing, Duke recommended that it was necessary to perform limited supplemental modeling and to submit additional portfolio analysis and supporting testimony in this proceeding based on its updated 2023 fall load forecast. Following the receipt and consideration of comments from interested parties regarding Duke's intent to file supplemental materials, on January 17th, 2024, the Commission issued an order scheduling public hearings, establishing interventions and testimony due dates and discovery guidelines, requiring public notice and providing direction regarding Duke's supplemental modeling. The January 17th procedural order permitted Duke to file supplemental modeling, additional portfolio analysis, and supplemental testimony. It set forth discovery guidelines and scheduled 5 public hearings across the state, including one to be held remotely, scheduled a technical conference on the intervener's analysis of the CPIRP, required Duke to provide public notice of the hearings to its customers, and extended the intervention deadline, the testimony pre-filing deadlines, and the expert witness hearing date. The public staff, which represents the using and consuming public, has been made a party to this proceeding in accordance with North Carolina General Statute Section 62-15D, and the Attorney General's Office has been allowed to intervene in this proceeding on behalf of the using and consuming public in accordance with North Carolina General Statute Section 62-20 and on behalf of the state and its citizens in accordance with North Carolina General Statute Section 114-2 sub 8. In addition to the public staff and the Attorney General, the following parties have petitioned to and been allowed to intervene in this proceeding: Appalachian Voices, Avangrid Renewables, Carolina Clean Energy Business Association, Clean Energy Buyers Association, Carolina Industrial Group for Fair Utility Rates 2 and 3, Carolina Utility Customers Association Incorporated, Electricities of North Carolina Incorporated, North Carolina Eastern Municipal Power Agency, North Carolina Municipal Power Agency Number 1, the Environmental Defense Fund, Fayetteville Public Works Commission, Google, NC Warren, North Carolina Electric Membership Corporation, North Carolina Sustainable Energy Association, the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy, the Sierra Club, and the Natural Resources Defense Council, Total Energies, and Walmart. That brings us to tonight. We're here tonight to hear from you, the public, regarding the contents of Duke's 2023 CPIRP. In order to facilitate a full and fair opportunity for all speakers to participate tonight, we're going to use the following procedures. First, in conducting this hearing, the Commission functions in a judicial capacity, as we're required to under North Carolina law. We largely followed the North Carolina rules of civil procedure and the rules of evidence. Because the Commission functions as a court, we cannot respond to your questions. Rather, we're here to receive evidence from you in the form of your testimony. In addition, for these reasons, if you choose to testify tonight, you'll be asked to affirm the truthfulness of your testimony before giving it. Second, public witnesses will appear by audio connection only. Commissioners and attorneys will be appearing by video and audio connection. Any public witness that wishes to view a live video of the proceeding may access it on a computer by way of YouTube, which is linked from the Commission's homepage. However, be sure to mute your computer when you're called to testify to avoid feedback. This hearing is being transcribed by our court reporter, and it's critical that we limit interference with her ability to hear me and to hear those of you who are going to testify tonight. Third, in order to allow each person an equal amount of time, there will be a limit of 3 minutes for each witness to speak. Fourth, public witnesses will be called on to testify in the order that you all have called in. When it's your turn to speak, the WebEx administrator will send you a request to unmute your line. You will hear the message, "You're being asked to unmute yourself. To unmute, press *6. It's important that you listen for this message. Once you unmute yourself, please state your name to signify that you are unmuted. At that time, I will ask you to provide an affirmation as to the truthfulness of your testimony. Once you've provided the affirmation, the attorney for the public staff will ask you a series of questions, and then you may begin your testimony. To ensure that this hearing runs as efficiently as possible, please pay close attention during the course of the hearing and be ready to respond as soon as you hear the message directing you to unmute your line. Counsel for any party may ask questions of the witnesses tonight. In addition, commissioners may have the opportunity to ask you questions as well. This means that if you choose to provide testimony, you may be asked questions by the attorneys or by Commissioner Duffley or by me. However, as a reminder, the Commission and the attorneys for the parties are not allowed to respond to your questions during the course of this proceeding. All right, with that, we are ready to begin. I will call upon counsel now to announce their appearances for purposes of the record. We'll begin with Duke.
Good evening, and apologies for the technical issues that delayed this important matter. My name is LaDawn Toon, and I'm Associate General Counsel here on behalf of the companies. Thank you to the Commission for this opportunity. Thank you to our court reporter for this evening, and certainly thank you to our customers. We look forward to hearing your comments and your perspectives on the carbon plan. So thank you, and again, apologies.
Good evening, Ms. Toon. All right, Mr. Freeman.
Good evening. My name is Will Freeman. I'm the staff attorney at the public staff here on behalf of the using and consuming public. Thank you.
All right. With that, any preliminary matters before we get started?
None from the company.
None from the public staff.
Okay. All right. Mr. McCoy, you may go ahead and unmute the first witness, please.
Hi, I am unmuted, and my name is Chelsea Lyons.
All right. Good evening, Ms. Lyons. Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
All right, Mr. Freeman, take it away.
Ms. Lyons, if you could please state your name and spell your name for the court reporter, and then give your address.
Yes, absolutely. So my name is Chelsea Lyons. It is spelled CHELSEA, last name LYONS, and I live at 621 Honeysuckle Road in Madison, North Carolina.
And if you can tell us who your electric service provider is.
Duke Energy.
And if you would please give your statement to the commission and the attorneys present.
Yes, absolutely. So first, I'd like to start off by saying good evening. I want to thank you all for listening to our stories today. Like I said before, my name is Chelsea Lyons. I am a mother, a wife, and I serve as the North Carolina field organizer for Moms Clean Air Force, a nonprofit organization comprised of over 1.5 million moms, dads, and caregivers dedicated to fighting against air pollution and climate change for the health of our kids. In North Carolina, I serve over 75,600 members, and I'm here today to fight alongside those members at Moms Clean Air Force in opposition to Duke Energy's revised carbon plan. I am deeply concerned about Duke Energy's plan to continue with methane gas production from power plants rather than to move forward with more clean energy initiatives. Clean energy initiatives such as solar and wind power produce less waste/carbon emissions and produce less health impacts to the surrounding communities. I myself live less than 20 minutes from Bellows Creek Power Station, a coal-fired power plant that has been spewing toxic pollutants into our air and waterways since it began operating in 1974. This plant has exceeded state groundwater standards for several heavy metals such as mercury, chromium, barium, selenium, and arsenic. In a study conducted by the Environmental Protection Agency, people with well water contaminated by arsenic, the main polluter found in coal ash, had a 1 in 50 chance of getting cancer. In an additional study by Physicians for Social Responsibility, an overconsumption of selenium and chromium can cause illnesses such as intestinal ulcers, anemia, stomach cancer, neurological effects such as impaired vision, paralysis, and even death. Mercury, on the other hand, can harm human health in a variety of ways. It's especially dangerous for developing babies and children's brains. When pregnant women eat contaminated fish, mercury can cross the placenta and impact children's ability to walk, talk, read, and learn. It can also cause behavioral issues, and mercury is also linked to cardiovascular problems, including the increased risk of heart attacks. I am concerned for my child and all the other residents living in and near and around any of these stations due to the negligence. Many power plants can be found in low-income, Black-brown communities and Indigenous communities, which causes a major environmental justice concern. This power station in particular has repeatedly contaminated Bellows Lake, Little Bellows Creek, and the Dan River. In a Harvard study, researchers found that burning natural gas, biomass, and wood will produce more negative health impacts than the ones I just suggested. The carbon plan intends to build more gas plants throughout North Carolina because it will financially benefit Duke Energy rather than set their focus on cleaner alternatives such as solar and wind farms. This is a terrifying scenario for the citizens of North Carolina, and we must demand change. As a mother, I want a clean and healthy environment for my child, as well as all the children living in North Carolina. That is why I'm here today, to vocalize those concerns. In a recent alarming 108-page EPA study titled Climate Change in Children's Health and Well-Being, it discusses the impacts climate change has on our children's physical and mental health, and it emphasizes the importance of considering our kids when discussing matters such as this. Children's developing brains and lungs should not have to withstand this amount of pollution, let alone when we have the tools for clean energy operations. I am asking the NCUC to consider our children when making decisions regarding Duke Energy's carbon plan. We are asking for more clean energy initiatives to be implemented across North Carolina that will allow us to reach the goal of 70% reduction in carbon emissions by 2030 and 100% reduction by 2050. I want to thank you again for listening to my story, and I hope to see a better carbon plan in the future. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lyons. Let me see if there are questions for you from counsel for public staff or the company. If there are no questions, you may shake your head. Okay.
No questions.
Commissioner, definitely questions from you. Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Lyons, for your testimony tonight. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. McCoy, you may unmute the next witness.
Hello, I'm Judy Maddox, and I'm unmuted.
All right. Good evening, Ms. Maddox. Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. Can you hear me adequately?
We can hear you, ma'am. Mr. Freeman, you may take it away.
Ms. Maddox, if you would please spell your name and give your address and tell us your electric service provider.
Yes, I am Judith Maddox, Judith, Maddox, Mattox, address 15 Morning Star Drive, Leicester, North Carolina. Leicester is Leicester, and my provider is Duke Energy Progress.
Thank you, Ms. Maddox. And just for everyone on this call, I should have told you that as the attorney for the public staff, we represent the entire using and consuming public, and we have a team of engineers, accountants, economists, and attorneys who have analyzed the carbon plan and integrated resource plan that Duke has, and that our testimony will be filed on May 28th, 2024, and that your testimony today is being made part of the record that the public staff can use when preparing its testimony. So I know everyone on this call appreciates you and thanks you. If we could then, Ms. Maddox, with my preamble, if you could please give your statement for the people on this call.
Yes, thank you for accepting my statement. I am very respectfully concerned about the plans Duke Energy has submitted. In the past, Duke has said gas prices were a strong reason for increasing energy rates, but yet now they are asking to raise gas usage to triple from 3 gigabytes to 9 gigabytes. North Carolina regulations allows Duke to charge customers to build plants, infrastructure, which makes it profitable for them to request such buildings. But then they can turn around and charge customers for the gas costs that are required, whereas wind and solar do not have fuel costs. These gas plants are not cost effective, for in the future they will be outdated and inefficient, but we, the consumers, will still be paying for them. Gas plants emit methane, which is a much more potent greenhouse gas than CO2. This will raise the rate of climate change. Gas leaks are reported on an average of 1 every 40 hours in the United States and are explosive. Investing in a clean energy economy will help North Carolina be competitive into the future with opportunities for business. House Bill 951 set a deadline, as you know, of 2030, requiring, as you know, the 70% carbon reduction, but Duke is seeking to delay to 2035. This is unacceptable. The 2030 goal is achievable with expansion of solar, storage, and energy efficiency. Duke omitted acknowledging in its plans recommendations from a report that they commissioned from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, which found that Duke could most economically meet the carbon reduction targets by tripling the proposed solar on the grid by 2030. Thank you for your time and attention.
All right, thank you, Ms. Maddox. Let me see if there are questions for you from the public staff or from the company. All right, there are no questions. Commissioner Duffley, questions from you. Okay. All right, Ms. Maddox, thank you very much for your testimony tonight. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. McCoy, you may unmute the next witness.
Hello, this is Lisa Dietz. Can you hear me?
Good evening, Ms. Dietz. Yes, we can hear you. Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
All right, Mr. Freeman, you may take it away.
Thank you, Ms. Dietz. If you could please spell your name, give your address, and then tell us who your electric service provider is.
Again, my name is Lisa Dietz, L-I-S-A. And the last name is D as in David, I-E-T-Z. My address is 18632 River Crossing Boulevard, and that's in Davidson, North Carolina. And Duke Energy is my, Duke Energy. Yeah.
Thank you. If you could please make your statement.
Yes, thank you. And good evening, esteemed commissioners. Again, my name is Lisa Dietz. I've proudly called Davidson, North Carolina home for the past 9 years alongside my family. First and foremost, I really want to extend my sincerest appreciation for the opportunity to address you tonight. And I want to thank the commissioners for all their hard work on this topic. I know you all spend a lot of time and energy on this, and I'm very, very grateful. Now, concerning Duke Energy's current proposal for the carbon plan, I urge you to consider my perspective as a North Carolinian, as someone who knows a bit about technology. I have a master's degree in chemical engineering, and also as a mom who cares about her family's future. I have observed climate impacts and climate change just in the short time I've lived in North Carolina. And the reality is climate change is here now, and we need to act now. I can tell you that as a mom, when I think about the future, I am worried. Climate change impacts are only going to accelerate, and there are real solutions out there to give our kids a healthier, safer future. And I feel like it's past time for our officials to prioritize climate. So I have to say I was thrilled when I learned about House Bill 951. But that being said, I'm not thrilled with Duke's plan to date. The plans that Duke Energy is proposing involve pushing back the 2030 timeline, which is meant to be a last resort in case of unforeseen obstacles. This should not be the main plan for the state of North Carolina, and the Commission should not allow that to happen. Again, it's an amazing opportunity we have right now to protect North Carolina and our kids and our future generations. I really feel strongly that we can have safe and clean energy. So I urge you to implement a plan that prioritizes renewable energy sources and battery storage. I urge you to implement a plan that does not rely on old, dirty, polluting fossil fuel power generation. Renewables are now the cheapest way to generate electricity, and renewables are absolutely the least cost pathway for achieving the goals set forth by House Bill 951. I recognize that new fossil fuel power generation is likely what's in the best interest of Duke and its shareholders. And I feel like we can see that come through in the assumptions made in the plan. I understand that Duke has added an arbitrary 20% cost bump for renewables, but yet at the same time, Duke's plan is overly optimistic for gas and nuclear generation in terms of cost, timelines, and future fuel availability. I have to say, I don't envy you and your job. This is surely not easy trying to find the balance between the financial interests of Duke Energy and the overall public interest. I don't think it's the best business decision for North Carolina to move forward with Duke's proposal. So I urge you, please reject Duke's proposal. Duke's proposal is not in the best interest of North Carolina, and North Carolina deserves better. Thanks again for your time.
All right, thank you, Ms. Dietz. Let me see if there are questions for you from counsel for either of the parties. All right, no questions. Commissioner Duffley, questions from you. All right, Ms. Dietz, there are no questions for you tonight. Thank you very much for your testimony, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. McCoy, you may unmute the next witness.
Betty Madison.
All right, good evening, Ms. Madison. Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, Mr. Freeman, you may take it away.
Madison, thank you for attending. If you could please spell your name, give your address, and then tell us who your electric service provider is, please.
Betty Madison, BETTY-MATTESON. My address is 5108 Fortunes Ridge Drive in Durham, North Carolina. And my energy provider is Duke Energy.
Thank you, Ms. Madison. If you could please give us your statement.
Thank you, and good evening, and thank you for giving me the chance to speak to you. As I said, my name is Betty Madison, and I'm a native of North Carolina, born and raised in Wilmington, and I've been a resident of Durham for more than 50 years. I'm retired from a healthcare career, More importantly, I'm a parent and a grandparent, and I am deeply concerned for the health and safety of my family. I'm frightened by the potential negative effects of North Carolina's continued reliance on fossil fuels. I'm deeply concerned about how this will impact the health and safety of my family. And in my career in cardiac rehabilitation, I witnessed the impact of cardiovascular disease here in central North Carolina. I'm worried that degradation of air quality due to reliance on fossil fuels will negatively affect my health and the health of my husband, our children, and our grandchildren. Research has indicated that reducing methane emissions from the energy industry could improve public health for those at risk of cardiovascular disease. By reducing our dependence on fossil fuels, our children could enjoy a healthier future. Why is this not the #1 priority of the 2024 Carbon Plan? My childhood included many happy hours at Wrightsville Beach. Our children and grandchildren love to spend time there. Scientists tell us that the warming climate will cause rising sea levels and increasingly frequent and intense hurricanes. And I see images in the news of beachfront erosion along the Outer Banks, and I wonder when sea level rise or a destructive hurricane will threaten our beloved Wrightsville. I have been blessed with many forms of privilege, including that I can afford not to live where fossil fuels are transported or stored. I'm reminded of this privilege when I drive through Greensboro, where tank farms are located right next to the interstate. People living in counties where pipelines are located are at greater risk of facing water and air pollution and other risks associated with the pipelines. Researchers at North Carolina State University have shown the counties with the most socially vulnerable populations, people of color and low-wealth communities, have significantly higher pipeline densities. Now, Duke Energy proposes extending the pipeline into Alamance County through a highly residential area and within a half-mile of Alamance Community College. How will this pipeline affect the lives of the people and especially children living there? In conclusion, Duke Energy's 2024 Carbon Plan falls short of the goals that they helped to write in 2021. It appears that profit has been prioritized ahead of public health and safety. This latest proposal continues to invest in and expand on the use of pollution-generating fossil fuels and fails to support the expansion of safer, healthier, clean energy resources. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Madison, for your testimony. Let me see if there are questions for you from council for the parties. Okay. Commissioner Duffley, questions from you. All right, Ms. Madison, there are no questions for you tonight. Thank you very much for your testimony and for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. McCoy, you may unmute our next witness.
Ellen Van Velser.
All right, Ms. Van Velser, do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
All right, Mr. Freeman, take it away.
Thank you for coming tonight. If you could please spell your name, give your address, and tell us your electric service provider.
Yes, Ellen, E-L-L-E-N, Van, V as in Victor, A-N, Velser, V as in Victor, E-L-S-O-R. I live at 1005 Wakefield Drive in Greensboro, and Duke Energy is my electric provider.
Thank you. If you could please give your statement.
Thank you. And thank you to the Commission, first of all, for all you do. I recognize both the importance and the difficulty of the Commission's work. I have two requests this evening: that the Commission reject any plans from Duke Energy that do not meet the decarbonization goal of 70% emissions reduction by 2030 as required by law, and Duke be required to submit at least one modeled plan that does not include new fossil fuel generation. While the law allows the Utilities Commission to authorize a 2-year delay if it deems this necessary, my understanding is that the intent of the law is not to roll back deadlines in the planning phase, but rather to do so primarily when implementing nuclear or offshore wind installations due to issues that occur in ways that are beyond Duke's ability to anticipate or control. I feel at this point there is insufficient evidence being presented to justify such an exception to the requirements of settled law. In order to meet the goals established by law, it's critical that Duke stops building new fossil fuel plants, places existing plants on an accelerated retirement path, and accelerates the building of clean energy facilities and grid-scale storage. Therefore, I'm asking that Duke be required to present at least one plan that prioritizes renewables. The plans currently presented seem unrealistic in the proposed timeline for the build-out of nuclear power and in the proposed dependence on near-future availability of green hydrogen. I understand the least cost solutions need prioritization, but I ask that the Commission carefully scrutinize Duke's cost estimates. The plans add a 20% markup to the cost of renewables while underestimating the cost for both fossil fuel and nuclear build-outs. In addition, the fact that Duke is proposing to build a fossil fuel generation facility in South Carolina that will provide power to North Carolina but is not being folded into North Carolina emissions reporting is also an issue I'd like to see the Commission review. Thank you so much this evening for your time.
All right, thank you, Ms. Van Velser. Let me see if there are questions for you from council for the parties. All right, there are no questions from council. Commissioner Duffley, any questions? Okay. All right, Ms. Van Velser, thank you again for your testimony tonight. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. McCoy, you may go ahead and unmute our next witness.
This is Allison Cabisco. Am I being heard?
Yes, good evening, Ms. Cabisco. Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
All right, thank you. Mr. Freeman, you may take it away.
Ms. Cabisco, if you could spell your name, give your address, and then tell us your electric service provider.
Sure. My first name is Allison, A-L-I-S-O-N. My last name is Cabisco, K-U-B-I-C-S-K-O. My address is 5416 Big Bass Drive in Raleigh, 27610. And Duke Energy Progress is my provider.
Thank you very much for that. If you could please make your statement or give your comments.
Thank you. And hello, I live in Raleigh with my husband and our dog. And I first want to thank the Commission for taking public comments here virtually and at the in-person hearings as well. I really appreciate the work of the Commission in making sure that we have reliable, affordable energy. I recognize the work you're doing and how consuming it must be to listen and balance all the input from so many stakeholders in regards to implementing the carbon plan. So thank you. I'm testifying today in response to Duke Energy's proposal because I want to stress my concern about climate change and the need to reduce our carbon emissions now. I hope the Commission will hold Duke Energy accountable to North Carolina's carbon plan commitment of 70% emissions reduction by 2030 as laid out by the law. Later is too late to reduce our emissions and to reduce our fossil fuel use. Duke Energy extending the deadline to 2035 for really no good reason at all is just kicking the can down the road. We know the cost of renewables has come down significantly, yet their plans arbitrarily inflate those costs while also underestimating the cost of fossil fuels. It shouldn't be ignored that burning fossil fuels has a cost not just to the environment through climate change, but to our health as well through the pollution that we're all breathing in. Not to mention that fossil fuels will not last forever. Building fossil fuel plants is short-sighted. Ratepayers will be the ones paying for these plants that will be obsolete in just a few short years, and that is not a cost that I'm looking forward to paying. I'm especially bothered by Duke Energy's idea of building a new gas plant in South Carolina and not taking those emissions into account, which goes against what they've promised us before. It feels deceptive and dishonest. I learned about climate change in high school. I learned how devastating it can be, but also that there are solutions and ways that we can avoid the worst. We have innovators, inventors, advocates, public servants, and business people who would surely solve this problem quickly. But here, 15 years later, it seems like we're dancing around this issue when we have an opportunity to face it head on in a forward-thinking way. I recently moved here from New York, and I'm sure there are opinions about transplants, but the truth is I could have moved anywhere, but I chose to move to North Carolina because it is a beautiful state full of welcoming, kind, and hardworking people. It's full of natural places of enjoyment, and I'm sure none of us want to see the people and places we love harmed by the impacts of climate change. I have hope that our state can be a leader in the South and in the country in this moment. We can be leaders in emissions reductions and renewable energy deployment, and we can reject the building of new fossil fuel plants. I ask the Commission to please make sure that Duke Energy stays within the Carbon Plan's 2030 goal and demand a proposal without new fossil fuel generation. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, thank you for your testimony, Ms. Kubitsko. Let me see if there are questions for you from council. All right, no questions from council and Commissioner Duffley. Okay, no questions from Commissioner Duffley. Ms. Kubitsko, we appreciate your time and your testimony tonight. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. McCoy, you may unmute the next witness.
Hi, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, could you let me know your name, please?
Yes, it's Beth Carmichael.
All right, Ms. Carmichael, do you affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, it is the truth.
Okay, Mr. Freeman, you may take it away.
Thank you, Ms. Carmichael. If you could please spell your name, give your address, and let us know your electric service provider.
Yes, sir. My name is Beth Carmichael. It's B-E-T-H, Carmichael, C-A-R-M-I-C-H-A-E-L. And my address is 812 Cotton Exchange Court, Raleigh, North Carolina, 27608. And I am with Duke Energy Progress.
Thank you. If you could please make your statements.
Yes. So as I said, my name is Beth, and thank you so much to the Commission for allowing me the opportunity to come and speak tonight. I've been a North Carolina resident for the past 16 years, and I live in Raleigh with a brilliant but precocious 13-year-old daughter. And I absolutely love North Carolina, and I would not want to rear my daughter anywhere else. It truly is home for me. I'd like to start by saying that I'm very grateful to the Commission for keeping electricity rates in North Carolina among the lowest in the country. I especially want to thank you for the recent order establishing the Power Pair program. I think this is a fantastic forward-looking program because, as you guys clearly recognize, it encourages North Carolinians to install solar panels and batteries in their homes and will have a beneficial effect on our environment and on our economy. As I've been watching the carbon plan process unfold, I don't quite know how to say this, but I'm not fully convinced that Duke Energy is playing straight with us. From what I can tell, it seems like they're inflating the cost of renewables while at the same time being overly optimistic about the costs for gas and nuclear generation. Duke says that renewables and particularly battery storage are unproven and not yet scalable, but in their estimates, they're relying on the conversion of gas plants to hydrogen, which is far from proven to meet our reduction targets. And we don't have the infrastructure for hydrogen, and we also didn't get a hydrogen hub in the infrastructure law. So what is going to happen when the cost projections for this hydrogen plan don't pan out? Nuclear is the other big pillar of their plan. And don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of SMRs, but as with hydrogen, it feels like we're not getting the full story here. The actual costs for nuclear are much higher in the real world than what Duke is suggesting. So my question is, what are the consequences if they're wrong about all these costs? The cost estimates are so wonky that I can't help but wonder if renewable sources really are more expensive or riskier than what they're proposing. After all, everybody knows the costs of renewables have been dropping recently and are probably pretty competitive. The thing that probably concerns me the most about Duke's plan is that it's very suspicious to me that the gas plant they want to build in South Carolina that's supposed to provide energy to North Carolina, but Duke doesn't want to count the carbon pollution from that plant in their numbers for the carbon plan. I think that contradicts what they proposed during their public input period, and I frankly don't even understand how that's legal. I'm not an energy expert, but it just feels like Duke is putting their thumb on the scale with their cost analysis. And I don't really think it's a good idea for us to bet the farm on this much uncertainty. We've all seen what happens when Duke has to spend money that it wasn't anticipating, and it frankly still bothers me that I have to pay for that coal ash cleanup. So as a Tar Heel and a mom, I'm asking the commission to please stand with the people of North Carolina so that we can have a healthy environment and good prices at the same time.
All right, thank you, Ms. Carmichael. Let me see if there are questions for you from council. All right, Commissioner Duffley. All right, Ms. Carmichael, there are no questions for you tonight. We appreciate your being with us and your testimony. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. McCoy, you may unmute our next witness.
Jacob Van Kretschmar.
All right, Mr. Van Kretschmar, do you affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, Mr. Freeman, you may take it away.
Mr. Kretschmar, if you could please spell your name, give us your address, and tell us your electric service provider.
Yes, sir. My name is Jacob Van Kretschmar. 3 words. First word, Jacob, J-A-C-O-B. Second word, Van, V as in Victor, A-N. Third word, Kretschmar, K as in kitchen, R as in raspberry, E as in Edward, T as in tree, S as in snake, C as in cheese, H as in Harry, M as in Mary, A as in apple, R as in raspberry. I live at 111 Rockhound Road, Nightdale, 27545. My electricity provider is Duke Energy.
Thank you. If you could please give us your statement.
Thank you. Good evening. I want to thank the Commission for giving me and other North Carolinians an opportunity to express our concerns about the proposed carbon plan mandated by House Bill 951. I've lived in North Carolina for 38 years. I have a daughter and 3 nieces living in our state. I'm concerned about the consequences of a warming planet on their health, safety, and financial security. Additionally, I've worked as an entomologist long enough in this state to have seen increased average annual temperatures that favor more generations of crop pests and public health pests. HB 951 represents the will of North Carolinians that carbon emissions that are heating the planet be reduced. The bill represents responsive and responsible public policy in that it balances that will with the need for electricity. The bill specifies emission reduction goals, a timeline, and a least cost approach. The carbon plan that is adopted should be designed to meet those specifications. Current costs favor scale up of available renewables and storage technologies. Proposals to increase electricity generation by increasing natural gas use fail to appreciate that natural gas is a carbon emitter and ignore the availability of non-emitting alternatives. A carbon plan that proposes to rely on future hydrogen production and future hydrogen infrastructure to meet the statute's timeline is not persuasive. The adopted carbon plan stakeholders should include consumers who may lack the financial means to insulate themselves and their loved ones from the consequences of failing to meet HB 951's goals, timeline, and least cost approach. Thank you for considering the carbon plan's importance to the well-being of all North Carolinians. I respect the commissioners for engaging with the challenge of authorizing a carbon plan that fulfills HB 951. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Van Kretschmer. Let me see if there are questions for you from council. No questions from council and from Commissioner Duffley. All right, no questions from Commissioner Duffley. Mr. Van Kretschmer, we appreciate your testimony tonight and for your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all.
All right, Mr. McCoy, if you would unmute our next witness.
Susanna Watkins.
All right, good evening, Ms. Watkins. Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Freeman, you may take it away.
Thank you. If you could please spell your name, give your address, and tell us your electric service provider.
First name Susanna, S-U-Z-A-N-N-A. Last name Watkins, W-A-T-K-I-N-S. My address is 925 Marguerite Drive, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, 27106. And I'm a Duke Energy customer.
Thank you. If you could please make your statement.
Thank you. My name is Susanna Watkins. I'm a North Carolina resident since 1970, and I'm extremely concerned about the climate crisis, and I believe that the federal government and every state need to act quickly to reduce carbon emissions using all resources at their disposal. The North Carolina Utilities Commission is one of our most powerful resources and has done a great job keeping utility rates low and working on behalf of North Carolina citizens with innovative programs like tariffed on-bill financing for energy efficient upgrades and directing Duke Energy to speed up pilot programs that will strengthen the grid and make it more efficient. I am so worried that places I love in our state will vanish if the climate crisis is not addressed aggressively. Will rising seas drown our beach communities? Will saltwater intrusion in coastal farmland displace farmers? Mountain peak leaf season has already migrated to November. Imagine it in December and the stress that that will put on our forests. Duke Energy's preferred carbon plan pushes the 70% decarbonization goal to 2035. We can't afford this delay. Pushing back the deadline is meant to be a last resort, not Duke's default starting place. Climate change is driven by accumulated carbon emissions. So the faster we can reduce carbon, the more we will save over time in terms of climate-based remediation, health effects, insurance premiums, and so forth. I see serious flaws in Duke's carbon plan. Duke seems to be playing a shell game by planning a fossil gas generation plant in South Carolina to serve North Carolina customers, but not counting the plant's emissions toward the North Carolina carbon plan requirements. If we are paying for the power, the emissions need to be included in the carbon plan. But better yet, Duke should roll back plans for new fossil fuel plants. The idea that they can be transitioned into hydrogen is a real stretch for the imagination, as there is no scalable model for green hydrogen anywhere in the world yet. Will these plants become expensive white elephants in 20 years, with customers bearing the cost? While hydrogen power is a dream, proven technologies exist at a lower cost right now to meet the decarbonization goal. Duke has inexplicably tacked on a 20% increased cost estimate for renewables when real market data show renewables to be the cheapest way to generate electricity. I urge the North Carolina Utilities Commission to reject any plans that do not meet the decarbonization goal of 70% emissions reductions by 2030, as required by statute HB 951. Duke Energy has so much money and talent at its disposal. All they lack is the will to develop the best carbon plan for North Carolina. The North Carolina Utilities Commission can show them the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Watkins, for your testimony tonight. Are there questions for the witness? All right, no questions from council. I see no questions from Commissioner Duffley. All right, Ms. Watkins, we appreciate your time tonight and for your thoughtful comments. All right, Mr. McCoy, you may unmute your next witness.
Hi, I'm Kathy Denham.
All right, good evening, Ms. Denham. You affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Freeman.
Thank you, Ms. Denham. If you could please spell your name, give your address, and then tell us who your electric service provider is.
I'm Kathy Denham, spelled CATHYDENHAM. My address is 111 Peters Place, Davidson, North Carolina, and my service provider is Duke Power.
Thank you. If you could please make your statement.
I will be very brief. I wanted to call as a school teacher. I'm an elementary school teacher, and I would also like to agree with my fellow citizens whom I've been listening to give just very convincing testimony about why Duke Power needs to meet the decarbonization goals for the future of our children and grandchildren. I'm calling as a school teacher because I think it's good for the commission to know that even children can see climate change happening, and they're very aware. And they also bear the brunt of pollution from fossil fuel energy. The coal-fired power plants all along the Catawba River are generators of a lot of air pollution. Duke's plan is switching to natural gas, but that is also a fossil fuel. And we have renewable energy that is much better, as the other witnesses have said. So I'll be very brief. I just wanted to call on behalf of the children that I teach, because every day we experience when we're outdoors trying to grow lettuce, and it gets really hot, and then it gets really cold, and then it rains really hard, and then there's blistering heat again, that our lettuce doesn't grow well, and that also affects every farm in North Carolina. But that is an important thing for the commissioners to consider, as well as all of the facts that people are giving, is that this is about the future of our children, and also protecting wildlife for our children's enjoyment. If it's really hot, then the little baby birds may die in their nests, and that's very tragic for children to see. I think I'm going to conclude there because the other witnesses have said everything so well. Please require Duke Energy to meet the decarbonization that is in the House bill. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Ms. Denham. Let me see if there are questions for you from council or from Commissioner Duffley. All right, Ms. Denham, there are no questions for you tonight. We appreciate your testimony and we appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Mr. McCoy, you may go ahead with the next witness.
Matthew Mayers.
All right, Mr. Mayers, do you affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, Mr. Freeman, take it away.
If you could please spell your name, give us your address, and tell us who your electric service provider is.
Matthew Mayers, Matthew Mayers. I live at 2844 Wesleyan Lane in Winston-Salem, 27106. And my service provider is Duke Energy Carolinas.
Thank you. If you could please make your statement.
Absolutely. And thank you and to council and commissioners for this opportunity to testify this evening and for all of the hard work that I know all of you put into this. I'm especially thankful for the recent order on the tariff on bill financing, which I think is important in that it'll help a lot more people be able to afford energy and efficiency upgrades and should really help us move forward in our state. I do want to express some concerns about the carbon plan, as many people have so far, chiefly about the timeline. As others have mentioned, HB 951 called for a 70% decarbonization of our grid by 2030. The preferred plan put forward by Duke Energy calls for pushing that back 5 years, and actually, if you take into account the South Carolina gas plant that has been mentioned several times so far tonight, it's really more like 2037. I'd like to just remind the commission that we keep referring to this as Duke's plan, but really the law puts this on you. This is your carbon plan, even if Duke is doing most of the modeling to create the input. So if I were a commissioner, I might be somewhat concerned about pushback. It appears to be of questionable legality to do this pushback under the circumstances because there are no unforeseen delays as specified in the statute, and there's really only leeway for the commission to push it back 2 years. I would be concerned about pushback from the legislature or even possible legal challenges. I imagine that some of you probably, or maybe all of you, saw in one way or another the meeting of the Joint Legislative Commission on Energy Policy last month. And at the beginning of that meeting, Senator Newton mentioned this requirement that the carbon plan meet least cost standards, which is true. That's right there in the statute. However, he made it sound as if least cost is the main objective and that other things come after that. And Senator Newton, as a former Duke executive, undoubtedly knows better than that. Because, you know, we don't say, well, we're going to do reliability and adequacy only if it's the cheapest possible thing to do. We say we have goals and we will meet those goals in the least cost possible way. Similarly, House Bill 951 sets out decarbonization goals that we're supposed to meet in the least cost way. We're not doing that, and we're being asked by Duke to push it back and to invest in gas plants, to convert to hydrogen that nobody really knows if that's possible, to invest in nuclear plants at costs that Duke is making claims about that are probably about half of reality. Instead, I hope that the Commission will consider looking at a recent report from Energy Innovation called, the title of the report is Meeting Growing Electricity Demand Without Gas. And I'll be sure to put that into a written comment on your website so that everyone has access to a link to that. I think I'm probably already out of time, so I will just say thank you again, and I hope you will consider the many, many ways there are to put more renewables onto the grid and to avoid putting more carbon into our atmosphere for the sake of us all. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you for your testimony. Let me see if there are questions for you from council or from Commissioner Duffley. All right, there are no questions for you, Mr. Mayers. Thank you very much for your time tonight and for your testimony. We appreciate your being here with us. All right, Mr. McCoy, if you would call the next witness.
Good afternoon, or good evening, I should say.
All right, sir,
This is Ken Brame.
you need to mute your computer.
Sorry, is that better?
Yes, that's better. If you would, please let us know your name.
Ken Brame.
All right, Mr. Brame, do you affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right, Mr. McCoy.
Mr. Brame, if you'd please spell your name, give your address, and tell us who is your electric service provider.
Okay, it's Ken Brame, B-R-A-M-E. My address is 15 Morningstar Drive, Lester, North Carolina, 28748. And my provider is Duke Progress.
Thank you. If you could please give us your statement.
First of all, thank you as a commission for giving us the opportunity to speak to you and provide you with our perspectives on what is being proposed. I'm urging you to reject Duke's draft carbon plan because it does not meet the objectives or the target that it's supposed to meet. And secondly, I don't feel that it's the least cost approach that could be done. As a ratepayer, I've experienced the increases passed on to me as the price of natural gas has spiked. While this doesn't impact Duke's bottom line, it certainly impacts my bill. Adding 3 more gas-fired plants will only increase the risk of price volatility for ratepayers, even though it might help Duke's bottom line. While the current policy allows Duke to profit by building more plants, it certainly doesn't necessarily mean that we as ratepayers will benefit as Duke's bottom line will. I'm deeply concerned that Duke's plans will not meet the required 2030 deadline to meet the 70% carbon reduction goal. I'm further troubled that Duke includes unproven and likely expensive modular nuclear plants. The history of nuclear plants shows large cost overruns and long delays. And of course, those costs are passed on to us as ratepayers, not absorbed by Duke. Secondly, they're proposing green hydrogen. And again, that's an unproven technology and certainly unproven at scale to meet the timelines we're talking about. And there's a high risk in going that route in an unproven technology. I'm also Duke's commissioned a report from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, which showed that the most economic way to meet the goal is by tripling the number of solar on this grid by 2030 and pairing that with battery storage. In addition to that, Duke included a 20% extra 20% to the cost of solar, which I think, but also at the same time underestimates the cost of natural gas. This is particularly risky as we are likely to face a carbon tax or restrictions on the use of fossil fuels long before these plants are retired. And I'm also very concerned, again, as a ratepayer, that if Duke is forced to close these gas plants before their normal lifespan, that we as ratepayers will be forced to again pay the cost of building the replacements instead of doing that now, so we're only investing one time. And I think there's a high likelihood that as climate change continues to become more real, that government will pass restrictions either in the form of a carbon tax or in the form of actually requiring that from a federal standpoint, that Duke reduce the amount of carbon in a more aggressive form. And again, we as ratepayers will be left holding the bag when that happens, not Duke and its ratepayers. In conclusion, Duke can meet the 2030 targets by building industrial scale solar with battery storage and also with energy efficiency, as well as being the right thing to do for our environment. It's also, I think, the right thing for us as ratepayers. We need to be focusing on proven technologies, not speculative technologies such as modular nuclear and green hydrogen. And we need to prioritize ratepayers over Duke's profits. Again, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you tonight, and I hope you will consider this and send Duke back to the drawing board to come up with plans that actually meet their required deadline and their targets. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brame. Let me see if there are questions for you from counsel for the parties. All right, Commissioner Duffley. Okay. Mr. Brame, there are no questions for you tonight. We appreciate your testimony and your time. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. McCoy, you may call the next witness.
Hello, this is Beth McKee Huger.
All right,
Can
Ms.
you hear
Huger.
me?
We can hear you, Ms. Huger. Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, Mr. McCoy, Mr. Freeman, you may take it away.
You could please spell your name, give us your address, and tell us your electric service provider.
Yes. Beth, B-E-T-H, McKee Huger, M-C-K-E-E-H-U-G-E-R. My address is 6017 Bush Road in Brown Summit, 27214, and it's Duke Energy, Carolinas.
Thank you. If you could please make your statement.
Yes. Yesterday was Earth Day, but every day Duke is slow walking its responsibility to transition to clean energy by 2050. By then, many of us, as well as much more of the planet, will be dead. In comparing P1, P2, and Duke's favorite, P3, it looks like Duke will not even be starting to ramp up solar capacity and storage until 2030, not develop offshore wind by 2038. Both P2 and P3 significantly increase gas, which is a significant heat trapper in the atmosphere. Duke is quoted in the plan saying, the key differentiator across the pathways is the pace of transition in terms of the relative cost and risk related to cost volatility, reliability, and overall the market's ability to deliver successful plan execution. Pathway 1, they say, which from a planning perspective reaches the interim target by 2030, would require resource additions at a pace, scope, and scale outside of the realm of reasonable and prudent utility planning and execution, end quote. So, I urge the Commission to require Duke to invest those necessary resources to accelerate the pace, scope, and scale to reach the target of 2030. It is not reasonable nor prudent to continue polluting air and water with heat-trapping gases from burning fossil fuels. I am a power producer with a small solar installation. As part of our contract with Duke to transmit kilowatt hours, we had to pay Duke to upgrade its own grid. With Duke's policies like that and many other policies that discourage solar investment, North Carolina's gone from number 2 in solar production to way down the list, and our economy and our earth are paying the price. When Duke prepared P1, we can see that it knows how to transition more in a reasonable, or semi-reasonable timing. It just doesn't do it unless it's forced to. For the sake of our earth, force that change now. Don't wait until 2030 or 2035 or 2050. Thank you to the Commission.
All right, Ms. McKee Huger, we appreciate your testimony. Let me see if there are questions from council or from Commissioner Duffley. All right, there are no questions for you tonight, so thank you very much for being with us. We appreciate your time. All right, Kayleen, if you would, let me know how you're doing. We're at about an hour and 45. Well, actually, no, we're about an hour and 15. Yes.
Chair Mitchell, I believe those may be all the witnesses
Okay.
we're aware
Miss-
of.
Mr. McCoy, is that consistent with what you have?
That is correct.
Okay, so we have no more witnesses.
Yes, no more.
All right, if you would, Mr. McCoy, just to be on the safe side, would you check one more time to make sure there's no one else on the line?
Nope, we are good to go.
Okay. All right, with that, then we will be adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.